live here. Take it longer than I thought it would. Not yet. Sure, I mute that because I don't want to listen to myself twice. All right. Hello, everybody.
Go ahead. It's live streaming now.
Yes. Yep. Hello, everybody. My name is Jared Weathers. Welcome to the channel. Today we have Andrew. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. By the way, let me tell you, Jared, that I'm not a person who has a problem with differences.
Okay.
Whatever a person thinks or says, I listen to it and I weigh it, and I don't think I have all the answers. So therefore, I would rather listen to other people and what they say. I really don't have a problem with differences or different ideas or different religions for that matter. I have no issue with it.
Good. I'm the same way. I don't pretend to, be all knowing or anything, and I do like to hear different opinions. Whether I agree with it or not.
You can always learn from a different opinion.
That's true. That is true.
If you're willing to listen, you may modify your opinion and have a better perspective.
I agree.
Thought process, Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Definitely.
So what do you want? Let's take them one by one. What do you want to do?
Okay. Let's start with the Jesus one first because I'm kind of interested in that one.
Okay.
I'll let you start.
Well, a lot of people to talk about Jesus it presents a problem, because if you try to understand Jesus and what he presents, and you don't think in the possibility of a world beyond this world, or of thinking beyond our present thinking, you don't think of those possibilities, and that goes for miracles. If you don't believe in the possibility of something occurring, it's not quite in your range of thinking, then you're going to waste your time with Jesus or what he has to say. That's one factor. And also, what you really have to do with Jesus is read what what is reported, what he said. Not many people will say, well, maybe those people who reported it weren't telling the truth, or they were mixed up, or they were confused, or they were whatever we want to say about it. But you have to deal with Jesus. You have to deal with two things, I think. Number one, you have to deal with the possibility of a supernatural realm. If you don't think that's possible, then you will have nothing. Then you will waste your time in trying to grasp what Jesus presents. I'm not saying you have to believe it. I don't say that. But I'm saying that unless you can come to the point of thinking that there's something beyond this world, then you will not be in a position to understand what Jesus says. The second thing about Jesus that you have to really look into is his moral statements. Some of them, these statements are extremely radical. Not only are they radical, they are very, very difficult to fulfill. Let me look at a couple of them, of these very radical statements. One of them is the beginning point of the radical Jesus. I call this the radical or revolutionary Jesus. Jesus is not, and he is not a person that people may like. Matter of fact, they may dislike him in the things he says. He may present a problem in the things he says. Let me look at some examples of the type of things he says. All right, say, love your neighbor as yourself. That is a beginning point of an extremely difficult demand. By your neighbor, he means anybody, okay? And we have to try to understand what he is talking about in this statement to tell us to love our neighbor. Remember what does he mean by love? Does he mean by sexual love? Does he mean by some other kind of love? What is he talking about? What is he referring to in telling us to love other people? That's the first point. What is this love? What is the nature of it? I say it's an extremely difficult statement to understand. I think it's very difficult. And then he says even more crazy, I think, in his statement. He says even more insanity. First of all, in the statements of Jesus, you could conclude he was crazy. You could conclude that. That's a legitimate conclusion. But the second thing is about first when you figured out what he means by love, with the more insane and difficult nature of this statement is to love this person as yourself. That is very difficult because he is telling, what does he mean by loving ourselves? I mean, does he really mean we should love ourselves? I mean, we should love other people, I think, who are suffering or have difficulty. If you can understand what is meant by love, the beginning point is, can you understand what he means by love? That's the first thing. What is this love all about? Most people, let me say, Jerry, most people, when they think about love, let's say what they think about sexual love, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time. But there are many, many kinds of love, aren't there? There's the love of our children. That's one kind of love. There's the love of animals, dogs, cats. That's another kind of love. There's the love of our parents. That's another kind of love. These are all varieties of love. And therefore, the confusion arises in this statement, loving your neighbor as yourself, that we limit ourselves to the sexual definition of love. Or maybe a better way to put it is the romantic definition of love. That's a very limited vision in terms of, I think, Jared, what do you think? That is a very limited definition of love, correct?
Yeah, I agree.
For example, friends. Having a friend can be a kind of love. That's another kind of love. So, but which one was Jesus talking about? I don't know what he was talking. I don't know. I can't say that I can love anybody that I don't know. How can you love someone? This command to love your neighbor. I don't think I can do it. Could you? Do you really feel that you can love somebody else you don't know?
Yes, 100%.
You think you can do it?
Yep, I do. I love everyone.
That's good. So I want to understand your perspective that you love everyone. Tell me what you mean by that.
Unless someone gives me a reason to not like them or not love them, I just kind of open my heart to everybody, no matter what.
In other words, you're saying that person has to give you a basis for not liking them.
Yes.
But many people, let me tell you this about, you know this better than me, Jerry, that many people don't like other people for no reason at all.
Yeah.
It could be the way they dress, right?
Right.
It could be how they look.
Yep.
Many people in our society judge people on don't many people make a judgment about people on liking or disliking them on their looks and dress?
Yeah, I get that a lot, actually. So
what do you think of that? I personally detest it. Judging someone on their looks and dress. I don't like it.
I think it's a misguided or oversight of a lot of people's I guess basis for liking somebody. Like I don't judge anybody on how they look or how they dress. They have to, like I said, they have to give me a reason to judge them or not like them.
So you do not dislike someone who's messy?
No.
Will you talk to them?
Of course.
So you do not dislike someone who is not good looking?
Right.
But many people, that person, if they want to have a relationship with anybody, it's got to be good looking, right?
That is a very common sentiment. Yes.
Do you think that applies to both women and men? That women go for looks and men go for looks?
Yeah, yeah, equally.
Do you think it's a mistake?
To go for looks, yeah, 100%.
So, but on the other hand, it's a fact, Jared. You tell me if you agree with this. It's a fact that um, our first impressions about people determine if we. Let me put it this way: our first impressions about, which is based on looks and clothes,
Mhm.
our first impressions determine do we on for many people determine whether they like them or not.
Yes,
Do you
that
agree
that
with
is
that?
true. It does happen.
Do you feel what then? What? Let me ask you this, Jared, because I gotta get your thoughts on this. What is our world gonna do with ugly, not so good looking, messy, dirty people? What is our world gonna do with those people?
What should they do or what will they do?
What will they do? What should they do? And what will they do?
I don't think they should do anything that would affect them in a negative way, like not like like being like mean to them or something. But they probably won't have a lot of friends, unfortunately, because people first impressions are everything to a lot of people, and I think that's really sad, honestly.
So I think it's a good point. First impressions are very important to many people, but the fact of the matter is that realistically, Jared, you tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. Realistically, these people are outcasts.
They are, yeah, yeah,
So that person who wears a dirty shirt and who's dirty and not good looking and ugly, that person will not be given entrance to many places, right?
right.
You have a problem with that?
I have a huge problem with that. Yeah.
I do too, because first of all, let me tell you something about homeless people. Where I live in New York City, there's a lot of homeless people.
Mhm.
I talk to them. I'll tell you, Jared, they're very nice people.
Yeah.
They really are. Now, why they're also you can't make a judgment on a person being homeless because there could be many reasons for anybody being messy or homeless or whatever. It could be they lost their job,
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah.
possible, isn't it? It
Yeah.
could be they have a mental problem, a
Yep.
mental illness. It could be they prefer living on the street and being messy. Could be they prefer that
Yep.
they're in society. They don't fit in with our view of who people should be in our society, right?
Yeah.
They may not be comfortable in the regular society.
Right.
So I agree with you, Jared, that I detest judging people on the basis of them being not well dressed
Mhm.
or not so good looking or whatever. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think not so good looking people, particularly women, not so good looking women, let me focus on that. I'm not making a sexist statement because I don't think that way. Do
Okay.
you believe that not so good looking women have a hard time?
Hard time with like finding someone to
With
like be
finding
with,
someone,
or
or they are not guys are not gonna like them.
I it really depends, I guess, because I've seen guys that I uh were like, oh, this guy is naturally, he's a pretty attractive guy. Be with some women that I'm like that I personally don't find attractive. Um, and I thought that was odd. So I guess it really depends on on how they look.
Well, let's take one quality that our society, in a woman particularly, with a man too,
Hmm.
finds particularly, many people find particular turnoff. That is fat. Be someone
Yes.
who is very fat. A woman who is very fat. A guy, I guess it's the same. It might be the same, but not as much. Isn't being fat for a woman the kiss of death for getting a guy?
I would say over like over a certain point, yes, but for the most part, if it's not like super big, I don't think so. No.
You think fat, ugly people can get their mate?
To a certain point, yeah, yeah, definitely.
Let me give you another factor. I'm glad to talk to you about this because these things bother me. Another factor where people judge people and find them wanting is they don't have money.
Mhm.
I don't agree with that. See, I don't agree with that. I don't judge people on their wealth or even on their education or on being smart. Do you judge people? Do they have to be smart?
No, no, not at all.
But do you think some people make that the benchmark? Education and being smart.
Yes, yes, very much. I know a lot of people I don't think I'm very smart, but I've been told I'm smart, and I don't act like it. And I mean, I have a lot of friends that
Mm-hmm.
don't really think of me as that way. Um,
I
so
think you're
yeah,
smart. You're
I
smart enough.
thank you. Uh, so I to me it doesn't matter if we can have a good conversation. I will be your friend and I'll talk to you. But we have to have a good conversation.
That's true. The key is you got to talk to the person.
That's right.
That's right. So if you're going to make a judgment, they're stupid because they lack it. So some people will say, well, that person, I don't like the way they talk. They don't sound like they're educated or whatever. But that because a person isn't necessarily been to school, that does not make them stupid.
Right.
No, it doesn't. They could be quite as bright as a person who's been to school, maybe
Yeah.
more. Maybe more.
Yeah. There was a. Do you know who Seth Rogen is?
I didn't hear what you said.
Do you know who Seth Rogen is?
No, tell me.
So Seth Rogen is an actor, and a very smart guy.
Mm.
Uh, he dropped out of school, in high school, and I think he's actually smarter than a lot of people that I know that went to college.
Right. Well, that's it. I have found that sometimes people, even if they get a PhD, ultimately, if they haven't developed their minds in many directions, going to school is only one way of making it in this world.
Mm-hmm.
I think our society requires people to go to school, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, is that?
I'm sorry. Repeat that.
I don't think going to school is really a benchmark or necessary.
Right. I agree with that.
But from our society has made it a point of not only do people have to go to school, but they gotta go to the right school.
Yeah.
They gotta go to an Ivy League school. Unless
Mhm.
they go to the right school, they're lost, right?
Right.
Our society now what do you think of those kind of judgments that of the school a person goes to?
Well, I think like anything else, they're baseless. I mean, there's no reason why if I'm gonna go to my community college on the other side of my town here, why that's any lesser than going to University of Michigan or going to UCLA or something, when you can get the same education sometimes for even cheaper in a college town if you live in a college town, and I can get the same exact like let's say you go to UCLA, I go to my community college, I can get the same exact education that you got and at a cheaper rate, and we both have the same knowledge. So I don't think that that's even close to something that we should judge other people on. I think that's so stupid.
It is. And also another thing about the top schools, uh, I don't know what's going on here with the top schools people wanting to go to those places. But I think two things are operating. Number one, these schools make a lot of money.
They do.
They make a lot of money from these students. So they sort of convince people that by going here, you're gonna make it bigger in the world than going to a minor school, like you say, community college. But I think these schools, these top schools, they are really operating on the basis of money.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, money and I think prestige because they've been around since, 17, 1800s. Like, oh, well, this school's been around for a long time, so it's better. And it's not always true, though.
Also, the people may convince people to spend that money to go to that school. Think now the issue is by going to that school, it is possible, isn't that they are simply manipulating people to spend money and they really don't do anything for them in the end. They got to get out, they got to work, right?
Yeah.
They got to get a job as much as anybody else.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is your view on free public college?
That's a very difficult question to answer. You're asking me to endorse. Let me ask you to give you an honest answer, and I'll ask you a question in return.
Okay.
That is, you're asking me to endorse a kind of socialism.
Yes.
Um, uh, I think the only reason that college should be free is that it's going to help that person in their lives. As I said to you, it's a question mark whether going to college at all means anything or
Right.
advances anybody anywhere. There's been some debate about that. And you look, you could be a plumber
Yeah.
and make quite a bit of money. You could be a sanitation man and make 90,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
So the issue is going to college in the very beginning point. We have to deal with this thing. It's about money, isn't it? You're right by saying free
Yeah.
public college. Are you but are you in giving a free college actually benefiting the person?
Well, I guess it depends on the on what you want to go into, right?
Mhm.
Because if you make college, free, public college free, which excludes all the sort of Christian or Catholic schools, because those are not run by the state, obviously.
Right.
But if we make college free, public college free, I want to make sure that's clear. We could get a lot. I think we could get a lot more people going to college and maybe making degrees even worth it anymore. Because I mean, right now, my mom used to work at an AFC home, adult foster care, and she was the manager without ever stepping foot in a college. And someone that she worked with she has a bachelor's degree, and they worked together for like 8 years, and she was the manager. So most times I don't really think you need a degree, but I think depending on what you go into, you could get, going for, free public college, you could get a degree that actually matters and not a degree you spend thousands of dollars on and never get nothing with it.
I have different ideas about free college. I think our society should afford people there are a group of people in our society who can't afford to pay.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
They can't afford it. It's too much money. And that's true of many schools, even the non-prestige schools can charge 15, 20,000 a year. And many people can't afford to pay that, right?
Right.
So yes, I sort of see free college as affording an avenue for people to advance their lives who couldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because as I said to you, Jared, there are many people the two issues here. Number one, do you have to go to college? Should you have to go to college at all for your paying? It may be a waste of time.
For most people, I would say it is definitely a waste of time. Yeah.
So that's one issue that which I just defined about about college in general, free or not free.
Right.
But I sort of like to see a society where are afforded some chance.
Mhm. Oh, I think your mic came out. I can't hear what you're saying. Hold on. Oh, not that one. Huh. I cannot hear you.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay. Yes, that one issue is, as I said to you, you define these, you define many of the issues about college. Uh, so yes, I sort of like to see a society where people who lack funds to take advantage of the avenues available to them to have a better life, I like them to be given some route or chance. So in that sense, I like free public college because I think there are a lot of people who can't afford to pay.
Right.
And one of the problems with college, let's get to the nitty gritty, Jared. I know you're gonna agree with me about this. College is a business,
Yes.
and there's a lot of people. Maybe they deserve it. I don't want to say that people shouldn't get paid, but there's a huge number of people employed in colleges that make a lot of money. Deans, registrars, the president, all kinds of people like that, and they have an entrenched interest in maintaining this college system, right?
Yep.
So so college is about money, right? It's
Yes.
about people making a lot of these people. You find my sister works in a college. She's a professor.
Okay.
I have been told by her that those people, which I just named, make $200 to $250,000 a year.
That makes
Like
sense.
deans, registrars, administrators, and president. Now I have to ask you, Jared. Let's get down to the facts here. What are they doing to earn that?
Nothing from what I've seen.
No, they're really not.
No.
So it is some sort of a political plum, right?
Right.
Do you think you can just get those jobs?
I feel like anyone should be able to get those jobs.
But the fact of the matter is that college is big. Schools and universities, all schools are big business, right?
Yes.
So the issue of free college, yes, the issue is whether colleges are worth it at all. That's the question of the inception. And the second issue is, which I sort of sympathize with the idea, since our society seems to require this education of people. That's another factor. It requires people to go to college, right? It's been a
Right.
requirement for some years.
Yeah.
It wasn't a requirement until the 40s.
Yeah.
I don't think
That's
so.
true.
People didn't go. They did. Ursa, let me tell you something about this, Jared. Tell me if you agree with me. People in the past, I didn't live then, okay, but certainly in the past, going back to the early 1900s and the 19th century, people did fine without a lot of education. They did rather well.
I agree to a point. Just because back then, a lot of I guess poor people in the past.
Well, most people
Um,
were poor.
well, right. Well, yeah. Well, that a lot of people didn't really get a lot of regular school. Like elementary school ended at like sixth grade, and then you went to go work on a farm back in the 1800s.
Well,
Like,
but it's only until fairly recently, at least certainly, and it's up to 1900, say, I think. I'm not sure. You could correct me if I'm wrong. That the society didn't require a lot of education. Mostly it was eighth grade, right?
yeah, I think it was eighth or ninth grade until like I want to say the mid or maybe like the early to mid 40s, I think, and then they started requiring at least high school.
So, but do you think those people, let's take a look at that system. Those people did fine.
They did fine.
They
Yeah.
got jobs. Also, the issue is they were, let me give you an example of what I mean. Though in our society today, there's an issue about education that people can't read and write or something, or it's not producing not well educated people. But those people who had a terminal of eighth grade and high school later, they were quite literate, correct?
Most were, yeah. Yeah.
They read the newspaper,
Yeah.
they read magazines.
Yeah.
So they were, maybe that was enough. And maybe college is an artificial requirement having to do with money.
I agree to a point. I think that there are some, obviously there are some jobs that you have to go to college for. Not all jobs, obviously, but there are some jobs out there you have to go to college for.
How many?
A
Most people,
handful. I
not
mean,
that
there's not a
many.
lot.
Look, what does it take, Jared? I believe in giving an honest thought. Those jobs that require college are paper pushers, right? They're paper
Are
pushing. They push
not
paper.
not all, not all.
But they have to do with going to meetings. And to be an executive has to do with going to meetings.
Well, sure. Well, you also got to think though. There's doctors and lawyers, and that kind of stuff requires college.
But for many people in the earlier times, people became lawyers and doctors kind of as an apprentice. They didn't go to
Yes,
school. They didn't,
it
and
did.
they did all right, didn't they?
Yes and no. I mean, there are obviously people who are better. I think that back then, without requiring college, there was a lot more mistakes than there are now. I mean, there was a there was a story of a general getting shot, and the doctors dug the bullet out with their fingers, not using any type of protection on their fingers, and the wound got infected, and he died. So, I mean that's how it was, but
Right.
with
Yeah.
more
I see what you're
training,
saying. But let
you
me
know.
throw this in front of you. I have 2 volumes of Abraham Lincoln's writings.
Okay.
And I also have a book on the Lincoln Douglas debates. Now, Lincoln went only as far as 4th or 5th grade.
Right.
And I read his writings and they are fantastic. I mean, so how can you explain that a guy who went to 4th grade could produce that written work? How do you explain that, number one? I also have the debates of Douglas and Lincoln. They were perfectly intelligent, well-spoken people. They were not ignorant. They were not stupid. They were quite literate. So the issue is, do we really need all this stuff that's put on people in terms of education? If you look at these people, when there was no education, they were quite competent and maybe more competent than people today.
I disagree that they're more competent than most people today. I guess I would have to. I don't really know much about what Abraham Lincoln did before he became president, so I'd have to see what he did during his life to make him so literate. Because usually 4th grade isn't even close to
No, it
being able
isn't.
to produce all that.
So how do you explain that? Did that society form people with greater formation in this respect? When there was no first of all, at that time there was no television.
Right.
There was no movies.
Right.
There was none of this media blast on people. Maybe that was the difference.
I still disagree with that. I don't think that media is making people less coherent, I guess would be the word I'd use. I think it's honestly just down to the person. I mean, those two out of however millions of people were in America at the time. I mean, Abraham Lincoln, from what I've read and what I've seen so far, which is not a lot, to be quite honest with you, but I've read a lot of people talk about how Abraham Lincoln was like one of the smartest kids in his class. Maybe it's just they just happen to be two of the smartest people around at the time. I mean, that happens.
So you're saying that it's a matter of the individual. These
Yeah.
people rose to the top on this
Yeah.
basis, and that because of their ability,
Right.
their ability was inherently greater than many other people. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't really think that it's about how much media we consume as a people or whatever species, I guess is what I would call it. I would say that it's just, I mean, that happens a lot, right? The smartest people, or the people who can actually handle real life, they rise to the top. The cream rises always. I mean, it's just how it is.
Well, let me ask you this. This is very interesting issues that we're handling. Is it possible that because of some people are not academic ability, don't have academic ability, right? They don't do well in
Right.
school.
Yeah, that's me. I did not do
That's
well in school.
okay, because I'm making a point
Right.
that maybe this barrier of going to school prevents many qualified people from rising at all.
I would agree with that.
So you think that, in other words, does this academic, as I said, I still maintain this, Jared, and you disagree with me or not, schools in the United States have to do with money.
Are we talking about all schools, or are we talking about college still?
Certainly, high school is free, but
Yes.
certainly anybody who goes to college, it's going to cost them something.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You
And
know.
that's why we should make college free.
Well, I agree with you. What I'm concerned about is having a society where people who may not have the financial ability to pay are given a chance.
Right. Yes. And I honestly think that, free public college of any, and I'm not just saying like, like the Ivy League schools or anything. I mean like anything that's run by the state, vocational schools, regular college and universities, anything like that. If it's run by the state, it should be free. And I think that would make a lot more, not only doctors and lawyers and whatever else you need a degree for, but also plumbers and electricians, because vocational school, that also costs a lot of money to go to.
In other words, to become an electrician or plumber is costly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why they make so much, because you still got to take loans out for it. It's not nearly as affordable as even a community college.
Well, but let me put this in front of you: is this business with school in the United States? Is it real? Does it really matter whether you go to school? Come on.
It really depends on what you're going for. Usually not. I do agree. At least like I would say like 60% of jobs that require a degree really don't need one. Um, but I would say there are a handful of jobs that you do need one, or at least like something for, not like a bachelor's degree or like a PhD to run a high school or anything, but I think should be different levels of college for different things like that. Um,
But in the past, I didn't live in the past. I mean, I'm right now.
your thing cut out again. No.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay. Uh, but many jobs in past times, almost all jobs, and this goes for executives. People built huge. John D. Rockefeller. These people, Andrew Carnegie, built huge multi-billion-dollar business with no school.
Right.
So is it really in business? Do you really need it? Business? I don't think so.
Well, okay, I would say Rockefeller got pretty lucky there. I mean, he was the first one to really make an oil company. Um,
Hello? Go ahead.
um, I would um, I would say a lot of those people back then, even like uh, James Cash Penny, the owner of J.C. Penney, the founder of
Just a
J.C.
minute. There's
Penney.
someone at the door. Could you give me a
Okay,
minute?
of course. Thank you, Logan. By the way, I love you. You just check my phone for a minute.
delivery.
Oh,
He's leaving the stuff there. Okay.
oh, your thing came out again. No,
How about now?
there we go.
Okay. So, as I said,
Yeah.
uh, those people did just fine. Of course, it was a time when there was no income tax.
Yes.
That was a big difference.
Yes. Oh, again. It came out again. No. Hmm. I cannot hear you.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay.
Got it.
Certainly for many, many years, people built businesses, prospered, and did rather well without school.
I agree, but I again I think they got really lucky at a time where not a lot of people were doing certain things, and of course the income tax thing also plays a part. I don't think that it's simply because uh the society around them like formed them in a certain way. I think it's more of just they just got super lucky.
Do you think that in those times, because of there were fewer academic barriers, and you might say school is a barrier for, I mean, I think it's a barrier for many people.
It can be.
If
Yeah,
you're not,
definitely.
if you're not good in our society, if you're not academic, whatever you want to define as academic, Jared, good in passing tests. There are a lot of tests that are required today, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So if you're not good at that, you don't make it.
Right.
So, but at that time, maybe there were more opportunities.
I think there were definitely more opportunities just because degrees weren't as needed, I guess is what you I guess
Yeah, that's what I'm
what I would
saying.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think it's good to have certain degrees, like I said, doctor or lawyer, to really get the best training out of it. I think you need to go to school for longer for certain uh occupations. I but again, I wouldn't use Rockefeller or Carnegie as um standard bearers for that type of thing just because I just think they got super lucky at what they did.
But that the society at that point was more flexible.
Yeah, definitely.
It was more
Yeah.
flexible. Do you think it was easier to start a business in that society and build a business than today?
In some ways, yes. Just because there weren't a lot of businesses doing as much as we have now, obviously.
Mhm.
But I think the ways to start a business are more open for everybody nowadays that don't have that sort of I guess that sort of in the industry, if that makes sense.
What do you think of this? As I said to you, Jared, I want to hear your views on this because I'm very concerned about this. Not everybody in this world does well at school, right?
Right.
They're not. You might say they're not academic. They're
Right.
not good at it. Should those people be barred or blocked because they're not good at school?
No, definitely not.
But the society imposes this academic stuff for people to get into the society, to make
Right.
it.
Yes.
Do you think that's right?
No, that's not right at all.
So that's the thing, is as I said, if you get down to the facts here, which I like to get down to the facts, so do you.
Yeah.
Uh, academic ability is connected with school, and
Yes.
schools are connected with money.
Yes, I do agree with that.
So do you believe that a system, our system is, we live in a capitalist system
Yes.
in the United States. And I hate to say this, but in the United States, everything is measured by money, correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, everything in capitalism is
It-
measured by
It's
money.
measured by money. I don't agree with that. In other words, I think people should be seen not merely as economic commodities. I don't like that. I don't like our society's rejection of people who don't have money. I don't like it. What about
Um,
you?
I don't like it either. Can I ask you a question then?
Sure, go ahead.
Um, would you rather have a socialist society than a capitalist one?
In some ways, I've taken this question in many ways. Yes, I think social, in theory, let me put it this way, in theory, socialism might be better. It equalizes wealth. It gives people chance at a free education. It gives them free medical care, and most of all eliminates something that I object to: class divisions.
Yes.
Capitalism builds and maintains class divisions based on wealth and money.
Right.
And I'm not particularly happy with that. So I would say that I do agree with socialism to some extent on the basis of that at least it attempts to equalize. I think that's good.
What don't you agree with socialism on? If you don't mind
I
asking.
think first of all, socialism seems to only work in certain small homogeneous societies such as Scandinavia, Holland. I'm not sure about this. I'm not an economic expert, Jared. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a person who's taken a degree in economics or anything, but it seems to me that as a economic system which provides jobs, socialism isn't very successful. It's been shown to not be, even in China, it has eliminated communism to a certain extent, to some extent.
Oh, right,
So
right. Well, yeah. That's because China is a fascist regime. Well,
it is, it's totalitarian.
yeah,
But
definitely.
all I can say is that it seems that in terms of job creation, socialism doesn't work too well. It seems that way. I think it's better in theory that it equalizes the society, that it
Right.
eliminates classes, that it equalizes wealth. I think wealth, it's good that wealth be equalized
Yes.
and that we not have wealthy people. In the United States, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Wealthy people run the country.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not particularly happy about that.
No,
I
neither am
see
I.
I see no reason why, because a person has a lot of money, they should get power. I don't see any reason for that.
Right. No,
I don't
I
think they don't deserve it.
no. Just because they have, just because Elon Musk is the most wealthy person in the entire world, doesn't mean that he should be able to run, like, as I'm sure you heard, he bought Twitter yesterday. Um, I don't, Twitter is functionally the town square nowadays, and I don't think that he should be able to run it by himself. I think it should have a board of directors like it used to. I don't think that that's a very good
Who is running Twitter?
well, it's gonna be Elon Musk here pretty soon, but they have a board of directors right now.
Well, the other thing, for example, when Donald Trump was president, I took note of the fact that everybody in the cabinet, everybody was a billionaire.
Yeah.
Every one of them. I don't understand what makes them get those jobs on that basis. I don't understand it. I
Yeah,
don't.
I don't either, to be quite honest with you.
Maybe first of all, are they? Let's take the look of a person being intelligent, or I don't think a person who has, and the entire Senate consists of millionaires, by the way, and probably the House of Representatives consists of millionaires. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not, now, does that mean those people are qualified? It does not mean they're qualified. They may be, in fact, be less qualified than people who don't have money.
I would say a lot of them are less qualified.
They may, or let me put it this way. Let me put it this way, Jared. I hate to say this, but politicians may not be all that smart.
No, I completely agree that not all politicians are very smart.
I don't think they are.
No.
I think they get to where they are. Look, I hate to say it. It's not something I'm happy saying. And I hope I'm not lying or telling the truth. They get, every one of them get, I think, get the, at least the entree to where they are with money.
Yeah.
And that's really why they're where they are, correct?
I would cut out a few, but I would say most of them do get there just by how much money they have or how much money they are given
Does
by a
that
certain
go for
company.
does that go for, say, a judge or any kind of job in the government, in the federal government, bureaucrats? Say every bureaucrat. Do you think they get those jobs by contributing money?
Not all, but I'm sure there are some that get there by contributing money. But I'm not going to say all of them do.
But are you happy with a society where people run the country on the basis of their wealth?
No, it should be how and I don't mean to disparage all Republicans, but a lot of Republicans say that it's that our society is a merit based society, and I don't believe that it is at the moment. It can be, it definitely can be, but I don't
I don't
think it
think
is
it
right
is
now.
either. No, I don't think it's we live in a merit-based society. I think
No.
you can have all the merit. And let me say this, Jared, and I'm not disparaging. I'm not making political statements one way or the other. But the fact of the matter is that the people who don't have money don't get even an entree into those positions, which
Right.
these people get. They will not even get a look-see. You might as well forget it. You'd be
Yeah.
lucky to get a job at all. If you don't have money, the best you can hope for is getting some kind of a job.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah.
You will never, never rise in our system without money.
Yeah, and that's really sad.
It's very sad.
It's super sad, and I think that that's a bad way to run a country.
Well, but let's take a look at, don't you take something like communist country like China or Russia? Well, Russia isn't communist. I guess it's communist. It might be, at least in the sense that the former communists run things. But those countries probably, I'm not there, I don't live there. I can't say. They are also, it's people with money, the ones who are at the top, correct?
Right. Well, if
It's
it's run by
likely.
money, then doesn't that mean that they're all capitalists?
Well, the question is that it's about power.
It is about power.
Okay, money is power, right?
Yes.
So don't you think that in most societies, you don't get power without wealth?
Right. I would agree with that, but I would also agree money is tied to capitalism. So any country that you have to get, you have to that you well you don't have to, but you use money to give power. I would call that a capitalist country.
It would be. As you detected, I don't particularly like capitalism. I have the writings of Marx in my house, and
Interesting.
Marx he had quite a following in his time.
Still
Communists
does.
still does, but the communists had until Joe McCarthy and the House of Un-American Activities, there were a lot of people that were communists in the United States.
Yeah.
The Daily Worker was a big, big newspaper of the Communist Party. And also a lot of actors and dramatists and artists were communists.
Yeah.
So, and also, for example, let me give you an example. I kind of like history. I'm interested in history to a certain extent. In the beginning of the 20th century, the Socialist Party was very, very popular.
Yeah.
They got a lot of votes, a lot
Right.
of votes. There was this fellow named Eugene Debs who ran on the socialist ticket. He got a lot of votes. So our society in the United States has tightened up against socialism and communism. There were more communists and more socialists years ago than now. I
Yeah.
think there were.
There were.
And they weren't bothered. Nobody really had anything against them.
No, wasn't Theodore Roosevelt, wasn't he a socialist?
I think the New Deal, he was trying to, he was faced with a situation. He was in a sense a socialist. He took over the Socialist Party in his program. I think that's what happened. But I think that for me, the country was in real trouble in the Depression. A lot of
Yeah.
people had lost their jobs, a lot. And at that time, the capitalist system didn't give any help to people.
Right.
Didn't give any help. They were riding railroads. They were riding boxcars. They were selling apples. They were desperate.
Yeah.
So that system didn't help those people. So Roosevelt changed it and gave some help to the have-nots, to the poor. I
Right.
don't think poor people before Roosevelt had a chance. I don't think
No,
so.
not at all. Not at all. I mean, well, everyone back then were working in factories.
They, but they didn't get any help. There was no welfare.
Right.
There was no unemployment insurance.
Right.
There was no workman's compensation. None of those things.
None of it.
Those were reforms of Roosevelt, and they were good.
Yeah.
They
It
made
helped.
this. They helped people. He helped people. He brought a lot of people into society, and under Roosevelt, unions were formed. I am
Yeah.
pro-union. I'm pro-union, Jared. I want to tell you that.
I'm also pro union.
I think people need unions. I
Mhm.
think without unions, all unions aren't doing very well these days in this country. They're not as prevalent as they used to be.
No, definitely not. And unions really need to make a big comeback, especially against Amazon. Have you been hearing? Have you been following the news about all the
I,
unions that Amazon is crushing?
that's good. I thought that was good.
It's amazing that there's finally unions to stand up against the biggest company in the entire world.
Well, I think unions are very necessary because I think that workers, unless they are unionized, they are abused by management
Yes.
hugely. Their jobs are at risk, constant risk. Let me tell you, I don't like this. One thing I don't like about the system in the United States is how easily people can lose their jobs. It doesn't have to be for cause. That guy doesn't like you, or you displease that person above you, you're out,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Now, I think that's bad.
It is. It is very bad.
And I think that we should have a system where people are given some job security. That's something I believe in, that we need, and that's what unions provide. They provide a form of help, a barrier against the abuses of management.
Yeah.
I think they're important. I think they're necessary, and I'm pro-union, you know. And the unions, they are like they change the balance of power. Without unions, the balance of power is stacked against workers.
Yes.
They have no recourse.
Right.
If they are 5 minutes late, they can be fired, which happens. I think, and also one thing that Roosevelt did that was very good. He created union. He allowed unions. There was great opposition to unions. They shot union leaders. They beat them up.
Yeah.
They did plenty to them years ago. But he managed to create a society where there were unions, and he did. And that, as I say, that was very good because it brought people into the society that would not otherwise have a chance. Or you might say he brought people into the middle class.
Yeah.
And today, let me say to you, Jared, because of the decimation of unions, that's one factor, I think, where there's no unions anymore, although it's getting better, you say, with Amazon. I think that unions he created a middle class.
Yes.
But right now, we have lost the middle class.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. There is no middle class anymore.
No, there isn't. So what's going on? People, there's no middle class.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the union thing, and I also think it's because minimum wage hasn't gone up in 30, 40 years.
The minimum wage?
Yeah,
It
but
hasn't gone up.
because without unions, people like me, I work at Walgreens, so I don't really have any negotiating power to make more money than I feel like I should, because we don't have a union.
Do you think one of the factors militating against unions is the lack of free speech in this country? Is there really free speech in the United States?
Yes,
You think there is?
I know there is. Yes.
But if you say a word against your employer, if you say a word against your employer, you could be fired, right?
Hold on. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
But unions were a big factor under Roosevelt. He provided unions for all kinds of workers, all kinds of businesses. It was good. He created a society which was fairer. Okay, that's what I'll say that about Franklin Roosevelt. He created a society that was somewhat fairer than his predecessors. I don't know what it was like before 1930, but I'll tell you one thing, Jared. I think it was plenty tough.
Oh yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, it was no joke. They're always, capitalists talk about how great capitalism. They do say that, don't they? Capitalists say that.
Yeah, they're always talking about how great it is, and how if we didn't have capitalism, then everything would just fall apart, which I disagree with.
So why do you think in the United States, which is a capitalist country, it has been a capitalist country for some years, this capitalism blocked socialist candidates, correct?
Yes.
That was a bad word to be socialist, isn't it still today? It's a bad word to say that about somebody, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think in the United States we have developed this capitalist system where socialism and communism, and I have nothing against communism, I think he's got some points, where are no-nos. Why are they no-nos in the United States?
Well, I think it really goes. You mentioned Joe McCarthy earlier. I think it really goes back to him. I mean, he not only said that communists and socialists were like taking over the country or something, but he also alluded to them being like Nazis, which are
he did,
which are completely different ends of the spectrum, and everyone just still believes. I mean, for a long time I believed that communism was like fascism, but then I grew up and I realized those two are not the same things.
No, they're not.
But I don't think people want to listen to anyone really explain the difference between them, and just want to keep believing what they already believe, what they were indoctrinated with.
But isn't really the no definition of socialism and communism a way of maintaining, a way of convincing people that power should be maintained by capitalists?
Yes.
So they're kind of manipulating, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. They're manipulative and gaslighting everyone.
Yeah. Oh, now let me ask you, let's go back to another statement of Jesus I think you might find interesting. Two more statements that I find it difficult to deal with realistically. Okay. And I am a Christian, and you're not, and that's fine. You told me you're an atheist, it's fine.
Right.
It's okay with me. It's a free country.
Right.
It is. So he did say to love your enemies.
Yes.
And he said, pray for those who persecute you. What do you think of those statements? How can anybody, any kind of human being, if you understand what he means, I don't know what he means by love there. I have no idea what he means.
That one I also don't understand, because if they're your enemy, I don't really think they're deserving of love, like your neighbor is.
He says that. It is true. So I find it difficult to understand.
Yeah.
As I say, the initial problem for me is that how do you love? What does he mean by love? I talked about this friendship love for animals, love for pets, love for the family. There's all kinds of loves out there. But what he says is extremely demanding. on us. I
Yeah.
think it's an extremely demanding and difficult statement to impose on us. So he pushes the envelope, it seems to me, the moral envelope,
Mhm.
if you want to look at it that way. He starts out with saying, love your neighbor as yourself. He's pushing the moral envelope. That's tough enough. Love anybody you don't know. It's tough enough. I'm not so sure I love anybody at this point in my
I
life.
if you don't mind, I disagree with it being hard to love other people that you don't know, just because
It's okay.
it's very, I mean, it's easy to. I mean, you could just be like, hey, man, I don't know, I love you, no matter
That's true.
what.
It is easy. Yeah, that's true. It's an easy statement, right?
It's super. I mean, I like I said, I love everybody until you give me a reason not to.
I see what you're saying. But what about loving your enemies? What do you say about that?
Yeah, that's that I don't agree with. Well, I mean, I also don't believe that he said it, but I don't agree that
Okay.
that he. I don't agree with loving an enemy. Like right now, what's happening in Ukraine? I don't think Ukrainians love Russians right now. I mean, or at least the Russian government. I mean, that would be insane for them to go up to the Russian soldiers and be like, "I love you."
So
I mean,
you don't
that's
think Jesus made these statements?
no, not at all. I mean, these are written hundreds of years after he already had
Right.
died.
I see what you're saying. I see your point. And uh, then by the same token, do you think they're lying?
I don't think they're lying. I don't think they understand what they mean when they say it. I think it's more of a trying to maybe see everyone on the same level. I just there's some people that don't deserve that, and like your neighbor deserves that. The people that you don't know, they deserve that. The people who invade your country or try to murder you or whatever, I don't believe they deserve any of that.
I see what you're saying. He also says, pray for those who persecute you. He pushes the envelope. If he did say it, you say he didn't, that's fine. But someone reported that he said this sometime later about praying for those who persecute you. What do you think of that? You think they're worth praying for?
Um, I would also disagree with that. I don't believe. Well, I don't believe anyone's worth praying for, but I don't believe in God. So, it's really just kind of you know, whatever kind of thing to me. But I mean, if you want to pray for people like that, I mean, you can. I don't think that you should. If you pray, I don't think you should pray for anybody that persecutes you or tries to murder you or whatever. I mean, that's kind of weird to pray for people like that.
Well, because of course I'm a Christian, and I understand. I think I understand what he's saying. He's saying he sets a value on everyone, irrespective of whether they are a neighbor or an enemy or persecuted. He sets equal value. I think that's his point. You don't have to buy into that. Let's talk about how much time do we have?
I have as much time as you need, man.
Okay. Let's talk about abortion.
Okay,
I oppose abortion personally because I think it's killing somebody.
sure.
But you can disagree with that. What's your position on abortion?
I disagree that it's murder because it's life doesn't begin at conception, in my belief. Life begins when the when the baby comes out and can actually take a breath outside the womb. Um, but I don't think that I don't think abortion is murder. But I'm not like, hey, everyone needs to get an abortion. I'm more like, if you choose to do that, that is your right. There's nothing for me to tell you that you can't do that. Um, but it's really a personal choice to the individual person.
Well, for me, the issue is that I say that suppose you in the womb were taken out and thrown into a garbage can. Where would you be? You
Uh,
wouldn't be alive today talking to me.
right, well, I want to be anywhere. Right.
So if you believe that it's perfectly all right to take an incipient child, put him into a plastic bag, and put him into a garbage can. You have no
What?
problem. You have no problem with that.
Well, I mean, it really depends on when the abortion happens, but usually it's just like a heavy flow period, because usually women know pretty early, and they take a pill, and it's just a heavy flow that month. It's
But
not
there's
really.
still ultimately if if an abortion had happened to you, what value do you place on yourself right now? Zero value?
At that stage, there is no value. I don't think there's a value for a
But
person
right
until
now, if
they're
that had happened
conscious.
to you at that stage, you wouldn't be here talking to me,
Right,
enjoying this conversation.
right.
So what's going on?
Well,
You're saying you're worthless.
no, I'm saying that when a fetus is in the womb, right? There is no value. That there is no value for any of us when we're at that stage. Value comes
Yeah,
later.
but if that fetus had been removed and destroyed, you wouldn't be here.
Right. Well that doesn't mean that I have no value. It just means that
Well,
I
it
didn't
does
have a
mean that
value then.
does mean that you were deprived of value and you are presently functioning, and you would not be functioning, and you would have no being if that had happened to you.
Well, right, but that doesn't really equate to value though.
It places you're placing no look. I don't want to get an argument that you're placing no value in yourself or in anybody.
I'm simply saying if it's up if the most people I know are anti-abortion for themselves, but I don't think that it's something that we should regulate and something that we should ban, because the more you ban it, the less safe abortions you have and more people die, and that's not good. Um, Plus, abortion really doesn't happen that much.
But
It's
most abortions are imposed on Black and Latino women who are poor and can't have those children. Most abortions, this is a fact, it's a reality. It's mostly imposed on Black and Latino, on poor Blacks and Latinos.
Yeah,
If that's the
definitely
case,
is.
you're saying that then Black kids have no value because they're
That's
Black.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the person.
Well, I'm afraid that I have to go someplace. But did you want to? We've been talking a while. I've enjoyed it. Have you enjoyed the conversation?
I have.
Yeah. Do you have any concluding words like you'd like to tell me that I should know?
I just want to tell you, I had a very good conversation. I hope that we can have another one very soon. Um and I really want to get to that Trump versus Biden debate. I really
Okay.
look forward to that.
Okay. Sure. I don't have a lot of time, but I'll do that. You start the conversation on that issue.
Oh no, if you have somewhere to go, we can move that to next time.
I do have somewhere to go, but I'd like to. What time is it now?
It is 5:10.
And when did we start? 4 o'clock?
It was around 4 o'clock. Yeah.
So right now, would you be willing to have another talk?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's great. So you're an open-minded person. I'm open-minded. I don't mind you telling me things that I don't disagree with because I'm listening and I see your point. You know.
Right.
So I try to be. What I try to be is open-minded and honest. That's what I aim for. In my
I also
talking,
aim for that.
you know. So why don't we? I have to go, and I will email you, and you can suggest another date.
Okay.
What do you want to talk about, Biden?
We could talk about Trump and Biden, and I will I'll message you any more ideas I have after that.
That's fantastic. I'll email you, Jared, to say how much I enjoyed the talk.
All right.
I found it stimulating. I found it interesting. I learned a lot from you. I think you had some good points, which is the way I always see things. I see other points of view, which I learned from that person. So I will email you and we can set up another date.
Totally. Thank you so much.
It's okay. It was good. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
It was good.